A man can be himself, only so long as he is alone. That's not just philosophy, that's a warning. Schopenhauer didn't whisper truths, he carved them into stone. While the world sings songs about love, he saw it for what it really was, a trick of nature, a beautifully wrapped illusion meant to distract, to seduce, and ultimately to enslave. He said, when a man falls for the dream, he doesn't ascend, he surrenders. And what he loses isn't just time, money, or freedom. He loses himself, his fire, his purpose, his soul. This isn't hate, it's not bitterness, it's a wake-up call. Because if you don't see the game, you're already playing it and losing. So before we go any further, ask yourself this: are you in love or are you under a spell? They say love is the highest feeling, that it lifts us, transforms us, that it's the point of everything. Movies sell it, songs worship it, poets write until their hands bleed trying to describe it. But Schopenhauer, he didn't just question love, he took a scalpel to it. He opened it up and stared at the raw machinery inside. And what he found wasn't beautiful. It wasn't romantic. It was survival, cold, relentless, blind. To him, love wasn't divine. It was deception. Not some mystical connection between souls, but a biological trick played by nature itself. A trick designed to make you abandon your logic, your purpose, your identity, for someone you barely understand. And worse, you believe you're choosing it, but you're not. You're being led, pulled by something ancient, something instinctual. The will to life, the force that wants nothing more than for you to reproduce and continue the species, no matter the cost to your happiness or sanity. Schopenhauer said it clearly: what you call falling in love is actually falling into servitude, because love changes a man, not by choice, but by design. The moment he loves, he ceases to be who he was. His thoughts no longer orbit his goals, his dreams, his truth. They orbit her. Her smile becomes the sun, her silence becomes thunder, and his life, slowly, quietly begins to bend around her gravity. He stops seeking truth and starts seeking comfort. He stops building and starts maintaining. And all the while he tells himself this is growth, this is maturity, this is what he's supposed to do. But what if it's not growth? What if it's surrender? Schopenhauer called it out. Love is nature's bait, a beautifully dressed lie meant to disarm a man and pull him into duty, responsibility, and repetition. You see her beauty and you think it's a gift, but he said it's not. It's a mask, a lure, a weaponized illusion, and behind that beauty is biology, unfeeling, unthinking, unrelenting. And it works. Again and again it works. Empires crumble not by war, but by a whisper. Great men are not undone by ideas or armies, but by affection. They trade their crowns for comfort, their swords for smiles, their mission for a moment. They think they've found paradise, when in truth, they've stepped into a cage, softly lined with the promise of love. But here's the part no one tells you. Love doesn't care about your peace. It doesn't care about your purpose. It doesn't care that you are building something sacred, something true. It wants one thing: to keep the species alive. And if it has to shatter your dreams to do it, so be it. That's the brutal wisdom of Schopenhauer. Not because he hated love, but because he saw what it really was. He saw through the illusion, the poetry, the cultural hallucination. He saw a man reduced, bent not by force but by fantasy, a fantasy that tells him this time it's different. This time she's the one. And by the time he realizes the truth, he's already deep in it, bound, exhausted, hollowed out. This is the illusion of love. A force so powerful it can make the strongest man kneel, smiling. A mirage so convincing it makes suffering feel sacred. But Schopenhauer's voice cuts through the haze. What if it's not divine? What if it's just instinct in disguise? What if you weren't falling in love, but falling away from yourself? He warned us, not because he despised love, but because he understood its cost. He saw the sacrifice, the fire that gets slowly extinguished, the mission abandoned, the man forgotten. And now you have to ask yourself, are you in love with her, or are you in love with the idea of being loved? Because there's a difference, and one of them might cost you everything. To understand the trap, Schopenhauer said, you must understand the bait. You must see clearly what you're drawn to, not with your eyes, but with your awareness. And that starts with understanding the nature of woman, not as society describes her, not as romance idealizes her, but as she is. Schopenhauer didn't hate women, he didn't demonize them. What he did was harder. He observed, coldly, metaphysically. He stripped away the layers of cultural illusion and stared into the design. And what he saw was not malice, but instinct. He said men are creators of ideals, philosophers, builders, explorers. They reach beyond the present, toward meaning, toward greatness, toward eternity. But woman, he claimed, cleaves to the now, the immediate, the practical. She is nature's vessel, not its architect. To her, survival is not a concept, it is a reflex. She doesn't chase the abstract, she secures the tangible. In his words, women remain children their whole lives, not as insult, as insight. Because while men are cursed with vision, the need to pursue, to imagine, to suffer for truth, women are wired to secure the ground beneath their feet, to protect what is, not to dream of what could be. This is why beauty, Schopenhauer said, is not a gift, it's a weapon. A tool crafted by nature to distract a man from his path, to seduce him away from philosophy, away from solitude, away from freedom. Beauty isn't the celebration of the divine, it's the manipulation of the desirable. It's bait, and it works. Again and again it works. A man will turn his back on his own legacy to follow the smile of a woman he doesn't understand. He will give up his fire, his fight, his foundation for a moment of connection that was never meant to last. Why? Because he does not understand what he's looking at. He believes her softness is sincerity, her attention, affection, her presence, purpose. But Schopenhauer revealed the deeper mechanism. Women, lacking the brute power of men, developed another power entirely: subtlety, influence, emotion. They shape the world not by force, but by shaping the men who shape the world. Not on the battlefield, not in the books, but in the quiet spaces, between whispers, between tears, between silences. Where man builds empires, woman shapes the emperor. Her power is not loud, it's not obvious, it's felt, it's internal. She moves through need, not command. She doesn't demand obedience, she inspires it. She doesn't ask for sacrifice, she receives it. Because man, under the illusion of love, offers it willingly. And all of this, society calls beautiful, sacred. They write songs about it. They kneel before it. But Schopenhauer called it for what it was: a transaction. A survival mechanism wrapped in silk. A dream spun by nature, sold to man as destiny. He said, woman does not destroy man. Man destroys himself by misunderstanding her, by worshiping the fantasy, not seeing the reality, by giving her power she never asked for but will always accept. Because it secures her, protects her, elevates her survival. This is not cruelty, it's nature, it's design. And in that design, men are not kings, they are resources, tools, vessels for stability and safety. And so long as a man does not know this, so long as he continues to chase beauty without understanding its purpose, he will keep falling into the same cycle, over and over again. So Schopenhauer asks you now, do you truly see her? Or are you still seeing the story you were told to believe? Because a man who sees her clearly, sees himself clearly. And that kind of man cannot be fooled. Marriage, society calls it sacred, the vow, the bond, the promise. We romanticize it as the peak of love, as the final reward for a man who finds the one. But Schopenhauer, he didn't see a reward, he saw a prison. And not the kind built with bars and chains, but with expectation, illusion, and law. To him, marriage wasn't a commitment to love. It was a contract signed under the influence of delusion, a spell cast by beauty and emotion, sanctioned by society, and upheld by systems designed not to protect the man, but to bind him, to make his sacrifice permanent, legal, enforced. He saw marriage as the final act in the downfall of a man who once had fire, a man who once chased truth, creation, freedom, and who now wakes to responsibility, repetition, and silence. Not because he became evil, but because he believed the lie. Because here's the truth Schopenhauer revealed. Love fades, beauty fades, the enchantment wears off. And when it does, what remains? Routine, obligation, a life of quiet compromise. And the man who once dreamed, he becomes the one who maintains. He bends his back not for glory but for groceries. He fights not for ideals but for peace at the dinner table. He sacrifices not for passion but for the illusion of stability. And slowly his spark dies. Not in a dramatic explosion, but in a quiet extinguishing, day by day, year by year. Schopenhauer said marriage is not a celebration of love, it's nature's insurance policy. A way to ensure reproduction continues, a biological strategy sealed with a ring. The smile of a woman is the bait, the promise of connection is the trap, and the man? He walks in willingly, calling it happiness. But what kind of happiness costs you your fire? What kind of love demands the death of your ambition? This isn't about blame, it's not about women being villains. Schopenhauer was clear, women are not the enemy. They're agents of instinct. They are fulfilling their role, seeking security, survival. It's not personal, it's primal. The danger is not them, it's what you believe about them. It's what you expect marriage to be. It's the myth you never questioned. And so men sign the contract, smiling, believing, hoping, and then, slowly, they begin to vanish. The man who once had wild thoughts, bold visions, endless solitude, now lives for maintenance. He becomes a provider, a protector, a placeholder. And no one notices that he's disappearing, because society tells him this is what it means to be mature. He called it surrender. He said the moment a man loses his solitude, he loses himself. Because solitude is where purpose is born. It's where fire is protected, and marriage, for many, is where that solitude goes to die. He saw men not as weak, but as unaware. They believed they were choosing love, when in reality they were obeying nature, serving instinct, enslaving themselves to a cycle they never even knew existed. And by the time they realize it, by the time they see the bars around them, they've already built the cage themselves. So he asked, is marriage love, or is it the final illusion? Because a man can chase truth, build empires, seek wisdom, but the moment he surrenders to the dream of romantic fulfillment, he risks losing it all. Not because he's weak, but because he forgot to see clearly. And Schopenhauer's warning was this: don't sign your life away for a promise wrapped in poetry. Don't trade your soul for a smile that fades. Don't confuse duty with destiny. Because the cost isn't just your freedom, it's your fire. There's a price every man pays when he devotes himself blindly. It doesn't come all at once. It's not loud. It doesn't crash like thunder. It drips, slowly, silently, like water on stone. You barely notice it until you're not the same man anymore. Schopenhauer saw it. He warned that the cost of not understanding love, of not understanding woman, is not heartbreak. It's erosion. A slow hollowing out of the man you were meant to be, not by tragedy, but by comfort, not by war, but by warmth. Because that's the danger. You think you're safe, you think you've found peace, but what you've really done is laid down your sword. A man begins to give things up. At first it's small, his time, his solitude, his routines. Then it's bigger, his ambition, his silence, his hunger, and soon it's his identity, not stolen, but surrendered. Piece by piece, willingly, softly, all for the promise of love, the illusion of connection, the dream that someone finally sees him. But Schopenhauer would ask, if someone truly saw you, Would they let you become someone else? That's the cost, not the drama, not the heartbreak, the forgetting the sound of your own voice, forgetting the power of your own thoughts, forgetting the wildness that once made you dangerous in the best way, and in its place, a man reshaped to be agreeable, palatable, desirable. This is how it happens, not with chains, but with approval, not with force, but with need. She doesn't demand the sacrifice, he offers it. She doesn't ask him to change, he volunteers to be easier, softer, more liked. And one by one the pillars fall. His mornings, his focus, his vision, gone, swapped out for a performance he can't even see himself acting in. A role he plays without knowing the script, and all the while society cheers. Look at him, they say, he's responsible now, he's grown. But Schopenhauer called it out. What if it's not growth, but decay? What if the man they praise is not a man evolved, but a man erased? Because here's the tragedy. Most men don't fall to ruin. They drift into it, slowly, quietly, by compromise, by adaptation, by letting love dictate who they are instead of guarding who they were. And when they finally look up, when the mirror reflects back a version of themselves they don't recognize, it's not rage they feel, it's not even sadness. It's silence. An emptiness that's hard to name. A voice inside that once screamed, now only whispers, "Remember me?" That voice was your mission, your truth, your essence, buried under layers of peacekeeping, caretaking, pleasing, performing. Not because you were weak, but because no one ever told you what it would cost. Schopenhauer wasn't cruel. He was clear. He didn't want men to hate women. He wanted them to see, to understand, to stop confusing emotion for truth, desire for destiny, seduction for sincerity. Because when a man gives his soul to something he doesn't question, he becomes a shadow. He forgets the mountain he was climbing, and he settles for the warmth of a fire he didn't build. So here's the question Schopenhauer leaves burning. What did you trade to be loved? Was it your silence? Your solitude? Your sense of self? Because if the price of love is your identity, then it wasn't love. It was a transaction, and you paid in pieces of your soul. And then something shifts. It doesn't always happen in a moment. Sometimes it's gradual, a slow cracking, a silence that starts to feel too loud. A routine that once felt comforting now feels like a cage. You wake up one morning and the mask is heavier than usual, the laughter more forced, the warmth more distant. This is the beginning of the awakening. Schopenhauer saw it before most ever could, that every man, if he lives long enough in the illusion, will one day feel it, the ache of forgotten fire, the subtle pain of a purpose abandoned, the grief of realizing you've built a life around something that was never truly yours. And that's when the questions come. Who am I beneath the role? What did I sacrifice to be accepted? What parts of myself did I bury just to feel loved? This is the awakening, and it's brutal. Because once your eyes open, they don't close again. You begin to see the game for what it is. Not in anger, but in clarity. Not to blame, but to understand. You see the machinery behind what you once thought was magic. You realize you weren't building a future, you were building a script someone else handed you. Schopenhauer said the highest man is not the lover, not the husband, not even the warrior, it's the philosopher. The man who steps back from the noise, from the seduction, from the applause, and chooses the silence instead. The man who walks alone, not because he's unloved, but because he refuses to trade his soul for validation. He understood, true freedom doesn't come from being adored. It comes from not needing to be. The man who can sit in solitude and feel no ache, no hunger for attention, no thirst for affection, is the man who cannot be owned. And that is power. But this path isn't easy. Most won't take it. Society will call you cold, detached, bitter. They'll tell you something's wrong with you for not chasing what everyone else is chasing. But Schopenhauer didn't write for the masses. He wrote for the few, the men who suffered enough to finally ask why. Why did love leave me empty? Why did sacrifice lead to silence? Why does the comfort I built feel like a coffin? Because when you start to ask those questions, you begin to reclaim something, yourself, the real you, the version that existed before you traded depth for romance, before you replaced passion with permission, before you started editing who you were just to be more acceptable. This is the rebirth, and it hurts, it burns, because the illusions you're letting go of were the same ones that used to keep you warm. But now, you don't want warmth, you want truth. You don't want affection, you want authenticity. And for the first time in a long time, you're not afraid of being alone, because now you understand, solitude isn't loneliness, it's where the fire lives. And silence isn't emptiness, it's where the truth echoes. So let this chapter be the turning point. Let the illusions fall away. Let the masks drop. Let the softness of delusion be replaced by the sharpness of awareness. Because once a man wakes up, once he sees the cost of his blind devotion, he can never go back to sleep. He becomes untouchable. Not because he has walls, but because he has vision. Not because he hates love, but because he refuses to worship it. And in that awakening, he doesn't just reclaim his time, his freedom, or his solitude. He reclaims himself. So now you see it, the illusion of love, the nature of woman, the slow theft of identity, the fading fire, the silence that grows in the absence of truth. And Schopenhauer wasn't trying to destroy anything, he was trying to reveal it. Because this isn't about women. It's not even about love. It's about the man who gave too much, too fast, without ever asking why. The man who sacrificed everything that made him powerful for the promise of being wanted. This is the call to come back to yourself, not in bitterness, not in hatred, but in awareness. Because once you understand what's been happening, once you see how easily men are shaped, seduced, softened, you begin to realize this isn't just your story. It's every man's story. It's been playing out for centuries. The details change, the faces change, but the pattern remains. And that's why Schopenhauer's words still cut so deep. He didn't write for comfort. He wrote for the few who were ready to see, the men who are done pretending, the men who are tired of calling their cage a kingdom, the ones who look in the mirror and say, I don't even know who I am anymore. This is not a call to isolation. It's not a call to hate women. It's a call to understand yourself before you try to understand anyone else. Because the man who doesn't know his own mind will always be ruled by someone else's. The man who doesn't understand his own needs will always bend to someone else's desires. So step back, look at your life. Where did you surrender without realizing it? What pieces of your soul did you give away just to feel wanted? And who would you be if you took them back? This is the moment, the burning moment, the one that splits the silence wide open, not with anger, but with clarity, where you stop asking how to be loved and start asking how to be whole, where you stop chasing approval and start chasing truth. Schopenhauer didn't write to make men fear love. He wrote to remind men they were more than love, more than servants to instinct, more than shadows bending to emotion. He wrote for the man who remembers what it means to be wild, to be focused, to be free. So, if you're watching this, and something inside you is stirring, don't run from it. Don't smother it. Sit with it. Let it burn. Let it strip away everything false, every illusion, every role, every performance. Because what you'll find beneath it is you. Not the man you became for love, not the man you became for peace, the man you were before all of it. The man with fire in his chest and silence in his mind. The man who walks alone not because he's broken, but because he refuses to kneel. That man, he cannot be controlled. He cannot be bought. He cannot be seduced into forgetting who he is. So ask yourself right now, am I the man I was meant to be? Or am I the man someone else wanted me to become? Because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. And once you remember who you are, you can never go back to sleep.